Good morning, everyone, and thanks for being here today. This webinar is all about Copilot. My name is Jeremy. I'm Technical Account Manager here at Intelligy. I'm joined by Alex today. Thank you for being here, Alex.
Thank you very much. Good morning. I'm Alex Franklin. I'm the Head of Modern Work here at Intelligy.
Great. Thanks for joining me and being here. So really looking forward to this one today. There's lots of technology that we support that I don't particularly use that often, don't have a personal connection with, but Copilot is certainly something that I use all the time and I really like it. So I know there's some Copilot skeptics out there. Hopefully in the next 45 minutes or so, we're going to do something about that and try and help you understand the potential value of Copilot within your organization. We've got lots to cover. If you have any questions as we go through, then please do ask those in the control panel on the right hand side, and we'll answer those either as we go through or towards the end, depending how we get on. So let me just make sure I can work Alex's laptop. There we go. So our agenda today, first thing to mention, this is part one of a series of webinars. We had so much content that we couldn't possibly cover it all this morning. So we're going to do some follow-ups later in the year. But the things that we're going to cover today, so I'm going to start with a bit of an overview of what Copilot is all about. We're going to consider typical use cases, real life use cases, and then I'm going to hand over to Alex to demonstrate some of those. So we're going to see some really interesting things about what Copilot can actually do for you. Beyond that, we're going to think about what you should do before you start using Copilot. So there's a number of things that are really important to get your house in order before you start to release it into the wild. So we're going to cover those things you should think about. And then we'll also cover the costs of Copilot. Unfortunately, it does come with a cost, but obviously there's a potential large return on investment there as well. So we'll consider both the costs and the return on investment. And then also how we might be able to help you if you need help getting started. So I just thought I'd start by introducing Intelligy for those of you that don't know us. So we're a Microsoft Cloud Solutions partner. We provide an end-to-end digital transformation service, really focused on quality and innovation. And we've been doing it for a long time. So I've been in the business for nearly 30 years now. On the left-hand side of the slide there, you can see our different practice areas. So we're split into different practices. So if I just take you through all of the different areas that we cover. So teamwork and employee experience is about collaborating within tools like SharePoint and Viva and Teams with a big focus on change management and adoption. Knowledge and information management is about your data and how that's organized, structured and governed. And then content AI is about how your content is processed and surfaced and using the latest AI tools like Copilot that we're obviously going to cover today. Our business applications and insights team, so they create tools to meet specific business requirements, either using the Power Platform within Microsoft, or we can do custom dev as well. And then our cloud platform and security team, they look after storage and device management, identity management, those kind of things. And lastly, our managed services team is all about protecting your return on investment in Microsoft applications and in the tools that we support. So, real wide area of experience there. And some of these other areas will be covered in future webinars as well, I'm sure. I just thought I'd start by sort of setting the scene around the current AI landscape. So there are lots of studies out there, obviously lots of stats out there. So this is a study that was sponsored by Microsoft, and they talked about this a lot through Ignite, but just a few key takeaways from this one. That top one there is about return on investment. So it's always a bit dangerous to just look at one number, but as you can see, there's a real big potential return on investment from generative AI. I'm going to dig into that a bit deeper later on, so kind of hold that thought for now. But these second kind of key takeaways. So there was a big jump in generative AI usage last year. So from a pretty high base already, 55% usage in 2023, up to 75% in 2024. So obviously that's a big jump, but also a big start point at the beginning of 2023. Bearing in mind these tools are all very, very new. So I'm going to look at a bit of a timeline in a moment. And yeah, this hasn't been around for too long, so it's a really massive jump in usage already. And then that last point is really about how people are already looking beyond the kind of standard capabilities of tools and thinking about customizing those tools for their specific needs. And it's great that we can show you things like Copilot agents today, a great example of where the tools are already enabling you to tailor their capabilities to your requirements as well. So I called this a brief history of AI. It's a very brief and very recent history of AI, really. So, the roots of AI go way back further than this. But I think AI really came into the public domain and into our thinking at the end of 2022 when ChatGPT came along. And there was just this massive boom in usage overnight, wasn't there? So you can see on there was already 100 million users of ChatGPT by January 2023, which is just staggering, really, isn't it? So, and if you compare this, I've got some stats here, Alex. I'm going to give you a bit of a pop quiz. Compare that to some other apps that we all know and love.
Luckily, I can't read your handwriting.
So I'm going to hide that. So I don't know. Let's take WhatsApp, for example. How long do you think it took WhatsApp to get 100 million users?
I'm going to go 3 to 3.5 years.
Oh, man, you got that bang on.
Did I?
You've obviously been looking at these stats already.
that
didn't work.
Guess. I'm sorry.
Let's go with Netflix then. How long do you think it took Netflix to get 100 million users?
I'm going to go 2.5 years.
That was 10 years.
Oh, okay.
So,
right.
But it really does just kind of show the staggering kind of growth over that short amount of time, doesn't it? And then shortly after that, Microsoft and Google released their first kind of AI technologies. So from Microsoft, we had Bing Chat. From Google, we had Bard. And those two tools have evolved into what Copilot and Gemini are today. I could have put DeepSeek on here. Obviously, there's been a lot of news around DeepSeek this week. Just kind of shows you that the landscape's changing all the time, isn't it? So yeah, lots going on, but a bit of a disruptor there within DeepSeek this week. A lot of people worried about the kind of ethics of using AI. So I thought it was worth just kind of mentioning that briefly. This is Microsoft's responsible AI policy. People are worried about how AI tools might be used, about the privacy of their data. They might be worried about, AI taking their job. So, there's a lot to think about around all of that. But I think it's fair to say that where Copilot's concerned, Copilot's not going to take your job. Copilot's really there to help you do your job better. And a lot of people are starting to say, aren't they, that, AI won't take your job, but someone who knows how to use AI will, or they just might. So this is about kind of using the tools and using them to make you better at your job and do things better as well. It's also worth mentioning that you can't always rely 100% on the accuracy of the data you get back. There was some good examples in the press over Christmas. So I watched a lot of darts over Christmas, and this one made me laugh in that Apple's AI alerts were already announcing the winner of the final 24 hours before that final had taken place. So as it turned out, Littler did go on to win the final. I think the story would have been even funnier if he hadn't. But yeah, it just kind of goes to show what can happen when AI goes wrong, and just be a bit careful, how you use the data and the results that you get back. Okay, so let's turn our attention to Copilot then, and we're going to be focusing mainly today on Copilot, Microsoft 365 Copilot. So that's really Copilot for business, if you like. But there are other variants already out there to meet other use cases. So you've got Microsoft 365 Copilot for sales, for example, which is that specific use case for salespeople, typically integrated with CRM systems like Dynamics and Salesforce. You've got Copilot for service, which is integrated into tools like ServiceNow and Zendesk. And then you've got the Copilot for finance, which is linked into things like SAP and Dynamics as well. So, there's already variants and add-ons beyond what you're getting out of the Microsoft 365 Copilot. But also, it's worth remembering that Copilot isn't just one thing. It's really an umbrella of tools that all can help you do different things. So Copilot will help you flip between your work and the web. It will also help you within different applications that you use on a daily basis. So within Word, within Outlook, within PowerPoint, there's a different Copilot within all of those tools. And all of these are grounded in your organizational data. So this is where really Copilot differs from ChatGPT that we mentioned earlier. Nothing is leaving your organization when you use these tools. Alex is going to take over now with some of the use cases, but I just thought it's worth kind of categorizing those before we see them. So, there's lots of different things that Copilot can help you do. So some of them are about productivity. So that might be helping you take notes in Teams meetings, save you time on routine admin. Copilot can help you create content. So maybe you're writing a blog post or a presentation and you just need some help getting started, and Copilot can help you do that. Or it might be that you've already created some content and you're looking to improve it. So your blog post, it's now too long and you need to shorten it, or you want to make it sound less formal or something like that. Again, there's capabilities to help you there. Surfacing content is about finding things and the search experience, and then data analysis is around using Excel, using Power BI tools to surface and analyze your data better. So if your boss asks you to do something and maybe you're not a whiz on Excel, then maybe Copilot can help you with that as well. But Alex, probably now time to hand over to you and see some of these things in action, please.
Yep, thank you very much. So I'm now going to do what everyone says you shouldn't do in these webinars, and that is live demonstrations. But we want to, I know there are some people on this call that know me and know that I don't like to give rose-tinted views and demonstrations. I like to give open and realistic and hopefully relatable demonstrations, and that's what I want to achieve with this session here. So with live demonstrations, things can go wrong. All I can say is I promise it worked in rehearsal, but it's all been good so far, hasn't it? So wish me luck. So what we're going to do, we're going to go through a number of different use cases, and these examples are based off of thoughts that have come from customers I've worked with, conversations I've had with colleagues, but also ways that I use it myself. And so we all use Copilot every day here at Intelligy. The more I use it, the more I've found I come to rely on it, and I really do love having it, and I wouldn't want to be without it now. So the first place we're going to start is with stage one. So Copilot in the web. So you have Copilot through Edge or whatever browser you prefer to use. And you'll see that we get two options at the top up there. So we've got work and we've got web. So work is going to interrogate everything that's on our estate. And I'll mention this a few times, but I should really emphasize that everything it interrogates is always based on what I am permitted to see. It will never interrogate something that I'm not permitted to see. So if I don't have access to something, it's not going to give me that information. If I choose web, then it will search across the internet and give me access to everything it finds out there. But I'm going to start with what would be a common use case, let's say, for intranets. Let's say we're building an intranet and we think of some of the common things people might look for. Some of that might be branding guidelines. I'm working on a new slide deck or a design of something, and I want to ask what colors are included in the Intelligy color guidelines. That's going to go off, it's going to find that information, and it's going to bring it back because it knows what I'm looking for and it's found the relevant information in the document. It will also give me links to the documents that it's found. So as Jeremy said earlier, it's not always perfect, so double check its sources. As you can see here, we've got it and it's fine. Now, another thing as well that's a good time saver, the nature of our work means that Jeremy and I as well often meet with new people on calls and we've never met them before. So we like to do a bit of background so that we can understand who they are and what they do before we meet, so that we can have that standard, slightly awkward 5 minutes of small talk at the start of the call, but at least we've got some icebreakers. So what I tend to do is I will get the names of those people and I'll ask Copilot about them. So I go to web and I say, in this example, tell me about the following people from Intelligy. I've got Jeremy, Margarita, and Ian. That's now going to go off and find whatever information it can and bring it back into some summaries. I can then expand on this or ask further questions, but this just gives me a brief bit of information, and I can have it into, I can ask it to put it in a table format if I want, so that it says name and job title and description, however I want. My prompt will guide it to do as I ask. And then we start to think about how it maybe works better with our stuff. Now, this next part, I can do it directly in Outlook, but for reasons I hope you'll appreciate, I can't really load up my own Outlook and show it on a webinar, so I'm going to do it in here. And now, we had a conversation internally, a few of us, back earlier this month, about electric car chargers and planning the installation of a charging point. And so this conversation went back and forth, and then it went a bit quiet. And as we all know, back and forth email is not always the most productive way to get things done. So we want to have a meeting. Now I need to know what's happened in these conversations, and I need it to build an agenda. So we had this conversation, and notice I've just put first names, Jeremy, Margarita, and Lewis. Read through the conversation and create an agenda for a follow-up meeting in which we plan next steps. I run that. This is now going to go and look through my email. it's going to find that conversation and bring it back. So it knows from the conversation that Jeremy initiated it and he's running it. So we know that I said I was going to create a booking process. We know that Margarita was going to work on the communications campaign and Lewis on posters and QR codes. So all these bits, it's picked up from the conversation and it's put it into an agenda. So what I could do now is just copy and paste this into a Teams meeting. But what I want to do is actually Jeremy and I need to make sure this is a bit more refined first. So I can edit in Pages and it will bring up this page where I can then start adding in whatever I want and changing this text. And this uses the same technology as Microsoft Loop. And for those who don't know Loop, I probably talk a bit too much about how much I like it. It's replaced OneNote for me. I use it every day, and it's got this really good feature where I can create what are called components. So what I can do is I can have this agenda, I can click up here now, and I can copy this component. And if I paste this into an email or a Teams message to Jeremy, it will actually embed this within that message. So he doesn't have to click to go somewhere. He can actually edit this in place while we're talking about it, and I'll see his changes being updated here live. We can then be done with it, and I can copy and paste it in. What I might also want to do is ask a follow-up question in here and say, can you suggest a date and time for a 2-hour meeting? It will then go and look at everyone's calendars, assuming I have access to them, and then it will propose a time that all of us are available, and I can get things started. So Copilot is really helping me save time and get me working in here. And it does work very, very well. So let's start to think about other areas. So we've shown in one of the previous slides how Copilot in the licensed version we're using is embedded within your applications. So let's have a look at some of those. Let's start with perhaps Microsoft Word. So I open up Word, and I've got a document here that's an example report. You can see down here, it's 44 pages long. And so that's quite big. And I'm going to send this out. And this document's structured where it's giving summaries and pain points and recommendations. But I want to create something that just provides a summary of this rather than making people read the entire thing for the key bits. So I can open up Copilot within Word on the right-hand side, and I can say summarize the common recommendations found throughout this document. Copilot is now going to go and look through, find all those key things, those key points, and it's going to put them within emboldened titles as well. So these are the key recommendations that have been put throughout this document. So that gives me my summary. I can maybe put this in the email that I send out with the document attached. But then I start to think, actually, maybe this would work better if I created a summary presentation of this. So let's go into PowerPoint. And in PowerPoint, I can use Copilot to create a presentation from a file. So it will now load up. It will pre-build my prompt. I can type in the name of my file, and then I hit go. And this is the part, this does tend to take a little while, but that's because it's doing a lot of things. It's going to get my file, it's going to read my file, it's going to start to think about the different things that could be in there. So you'll see it's got my introduction, it's building out the outline as I go, and it's looking at next steps. It's including the glossary of terms in there as its dedicated own slide. And then what it's going to do is generate these slides for me. Now, you can have this generate based on a template, and for sake of speed, I've just got it in a blank one, so it's potluck how it's going to actually look. But the key thing is here, the time that's saved as doing this. And I genuinely do this, and I have done it several times recently, because it will get the key information in there, and then it becomes, I believe the term would be subtractive manufacturing, because I've now got my introduction. I've got recommendations for the homepage, so the issues with it and the recommended improvements. So I can then start to chisel away at this and make it how I want it to be with the information that I actually need within there. And notice as well that it's even gone as far as creating speaker notes in there as well for me, so that when I'm presenting, I can refer to those and just adjust it as I need. So as Jeremy said earlier, it's not doing my job for me, it's helping me do my job quicker, more efficiently and smarter.
It's a big time saving there, isn't it? That would have taken you, I don't know, an hour to do all that from scratch, even if you were copying and pasting.
Half the time I find with creating these, it's that first point, that first task that takes time, getting that rhythm.
Yeah.
Once you get your rhythm, you're fine.
Yeah.
But it does take that time.
No, good stuff.
So next, let's maybe jump over to Excel. And in here, I've got a demo data set. So this is showing every Lego set that was created between 1978 and 2020. I'm not an enthusiast, by the way. I just happened to find this and it worked well. So with Excel, there are a lot of complex things that you can do, and there's a lot of analytical things that you can do. But if I focus this demo really on perhaps if I were someone who didn't know much about Excel, and the time saved with things like that. If I open up Copilot here, let's say I'm looking at this data set and I want to summarize it in some way. I want it to create a pivot table showing each year and the number of items associated with that year. Copilot is now going to look through my data set. It's going to find that information and it's going to create that pivot table for me. It will give me a preview and it will give me the opportunity to add it to a sheet. So you see we've got every year, there's my preview, and then I can add it to a sheet. Next, what I can do is so I want to highlight in yellow all rows where the pieces column is at. No, maybe I'll click. And what it'll do is another thing that Excel does that's really good. It doesn't just do it for you, it tells you how it did it. So you can actually learn from it so you can do it yourself next time. I know, for example, that previous one with the pivot table, anyone that knows how to do a pivot table can do it faster than that. But if I don't know, then it's faster. And you'll see here, right, this is the formula you need, this is how it's done, but I'm just going to say, just do it for me. I'll apply that, and now we see that we've got highlighted in yellow everywhere where it's greater than 400. And this isn't just a one-off thing, this is actually live. So if I change this row to 500, that's going to update to yellow. If I change that row to 20, it's going to then undo it so that it's plain. So it really helps us not just do things quicker, but also if we want to, we can learn as we go because it will tell us how to do it. I can ask it to write a formula and do whatever we want. And there's some really good complex things here. Everything we're going through right now is scratching the surface.
They're good examples of things I wouldn't have known how to do that. So getting Copilot to do it is just brilliant. It's just saving me Googling it and trying to work it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Now the next part is where I think the majority of people see what I guess would be the quick win value, the most popular part, and also the part where I consistently save loads of time, and that's with Microsoft Teams. Now, it's very difficult for me to give you a live demonstration of this in Teams, so what I've had to do is take an extract of a meeting that took place to show you what it can do. So I'm just going to come back into our slides here and load up the controls for them and jump forward. Now, with Teams, you can use Copilot in there to find information for you and say, oh, I spoke to somebody about this a while ago, find that conversation. But one of the most consistent things that I see people get excited about is how it works with meetings. So in this example, I've sanitized a meeting output. Hopefully I've managed to sanitize everything necessary. But when our meeting is done, Copilot can summarize it for us. So this particular meeting, I can't remember how long it went on for, but it was an hour and a half maybe. And you can see what it did was it listened throughout. And if I just put the laser pointer on to make this a bit easier, and you'll see down here we've got our summary. So it's put headers. It's talked about who said what, about what as we went through. And also it keeps a note of all the speakers, and you can see how much they spoke throughout. And any of my colleagues on the call won't be surprised to see that it was me most commonly throughout this session. And then when we go to the end of those notes, it creates follow-up tasks. So if at any point during this, Jeremy has said, I will do this, or Jeremy said, Alex, can you do this? And I say yes, it will capture that and it will log it as a task so that each person then knows what they need to do as an output of this meeting. Now, what I do hope for in future, which I'm sure will come, is a little bit more automation with actual tasks. I'd love it if you could have something like this and then click a button that adds it into a planner or something for this team.
Good idea.
There are ways you can kind of do that at the moment. There is Copilot in Planner. It's not entirely seamless, but I'm hoping it does come soon.
It's one of the most used things for us, isn't it? Sharing actions, sharing kind of notes and summary.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
I mean, there are times I'm on workshops with dozens of people for 2 hours at a time, and it's difficult to keep up with notes. And this is genuinely amazing. It's so good at saving time.
Yeah.
What it also does is it will create sections or chapters of the video so that it can then just jump straight to bits. And I've done nothing. All this is Copilot. But obviously, it's not always perfect. For some reason, unbeknownst to me, it spelled infrastructure with a K. I don't know why, but it's okay. So coming back over, let's come back into here for a couple more demos. One of the common desires that I've seen from people when we've been talking with them is Copilot in SharePoint and making better use of Copilot in SharePoint. So we can do this. I'm just on a demo page here at the moment. And if I click Copilot up here on the right-hand side, we can use Copilot directly within SharePoint, within our intranet. And I can say maybe, tell me about the bike, let's spell that right, to work scheme.
Yeah.
And so what this is going to do now is it's going to scour the intranet and it's going to find information on the bike to work scheme. So it's taken this from a page on our intranet, it's linked to that page at the end of this, and now I can ask it further questions. So are all staff eligible? And I can have a conversation and ask it questions. And if it gets to a point where it doesn't have the information, it will get the contact points from that article and say, you might want to contact this person and ask them. And it's really good because it's not just about knowing what I'm looking for, it's about knowing what I need and asking that question. And similarly, I can maybe say, tell me about our sickness policy. I run that, and now it's going to go and find what it believes to be our sickness policy. There's all the information. It does jump up and down a bit, but notice it gives me all the information, and it also links me through to 2 references. So I've got the time off policy and I've got the sickness self-certification form. So I've got all this information. It's really good. And this is something that from the very early days I was asked about, because every intranet we do, I can't remember the last time where when we did the initial workshops, one of the pain points wasn't ease of access to policies and procedures. And so what we inevitably do on every intranet is build an interface like this, where we might have a central search portal for policies and procedures, where we have our policies and we can filter based on a policy area, document type, owners and things. So we get that refinable search, and we do this on pretty much every intranet. And it works brilliantly, and people see it as a massive game changer. But now where the appetite is going is actually more along the lines of using Copilot to access these. But one of the things you need to bear in mind is how the quality of your data will bring results back to people. So in larger organizations, it may be that you have policies that vary depending on the area of the organization. So in healthcare, for example, you might have a different dress code policy depending on the nature of your work, and many other organizations as well. So maybe we want to target things, give people dedicated portals that access their own policies through Copilot. And that's where Copilot agents come in. And you can create these through Copilot Studio. Now, I'm no expert on Copilot agents, but I'm doing this because I want to show you how easy it is. And so with this, if I am in Copilot Studio, I can create an agent, and it will load up a page where it will give me some maybe example ones. I can explore things that are going to help me out, but I'm just going to create a new agent. And I'll call this, let's say, corporate policies. I can give it its own icon. I can describe what it is. And I can also give it instructions. So I can say, be as concise as possible or be as descriptive as possible. Limit your responses to 2 paragraphs, those sorts of things. Chances are when people play with this, at some point they will give in to temptation and see if you can actually get it to talk like a pirate or respond with poetry. You can give it a go. It is quite good fun, but the novelty wears off pretty quick and you'll come back. But then what we can do is add knowledge. So what am I looking at? So I can add knowledge here and I can say SharePoint, and I can add the URL of the place where our policies exist. So the policies I want it to look at. So target it to those. I can also add public websites. So for example, if we're working we're a local council or we're in higher education, a lot of the stuff that we use internally is, for good reason, also or primarily stored on our public website. So we can add our public website. And it works really good and it's very quick. And when I first started playing with this, I connected it up to my favourite restaurant, my favourite burger restaurant in Tunbridge Wells, where I live. And within a couple of minutes, I was interrogating the menu, opening times, and all sorts. It's really quite powerful. And so I can then create my agent, I can publish it, and then I can choose where I publish it to. And how I do that depends on my license model. So if you wanted to put this on websites, you need a bit more of a premium license. But when, excuse me, one of the really cool things you can do is you can publish these to Teams. And so you can create a bot in Teams. And if I open up Teams here, you'll see within Teams down here, I've got a policy agent. So this is one that I created yesterday. And I did exactly what I've just shown you now. So I pointed it to those policies and I asked it questions. Tell me about our dress code policy. How much can I expense for dinner when visiting a client? And it will give me those concise answers and it will give me links to the policies, procedures, whatever it is that I need. So it means now we can share this with our team and anyone that's in our team and our organization can just really easy click within Teams and have access straight away to the knowledge, the policies, the guidance, whatever it is that's needed. And it just works really, really well. It does impress me.
Great stuff. And no demo gremlins. Everything works.
I'm astonished, if I'm honest. But yeah. So the final point is learning. So when you are on Copilot 365, when you're licensed on it, it gives you access to the Copilot Academy. So you can come into Viva Learning and you have academies up here and you have the Copilot Academy. And then within here, this is a really good resource to share with your organization so that they can just get to grips with it, because there are some nuances. Sometimes it does take a little bit of getting used to using prompts in the right way, making sure that you're descriptive enough in certain cases. And so it starts with the absolute basics, gives you introductions, tips on how to save time with Copilot, creating, collaborating, and all this stuff. And it's a really good resource to help people get on board. And you can link to this from SharePoint, you can add it in Teams, you can go wherever you want. And it's a very helpful resource.
Great. Some really interesting use cases there. And if anyone's got any questions on any of the things Alex has shown you or any use cases we haven't covered yet, then please do drop those into the questions and we'll try and cover those at the end.
Cool. So there's one other point to talk about with this, and that is Copilot Chat. So some of you may have read about this, heard about this. Some of you may have seen it pop up in your environment already. And Copilot Chat is, I don't know, would I be accurate in saying it's kind of like a Tesco value version of
freemium, let's say.
Yeah, let's say freemium, that's better. So it's the free version, but free for chat. So it gives you the ability within the Copilot app or Teams or Outlook to have conversations with Copilot, ask it general questions. It doesn't embed within your applications, so you can't use it within there, but you can upload files. So I could upload an Excel file and say how many Lego sets were created in the years 1970 to 1980, stuff like that. So you can, and it will get a prompt back. It's not as seamless, but it does work. But it does give you access as well to Copilot agents. Those are not free. Chat is free. Agents are not. They're on a metered basis. So based on usage, you are charged. But it's there, and it's a good taster. It's a good way in to give you the basics. If you want more, you go with the full Copilot. Now, when we consider what we've seen, it's just scratching the surface. We could have spent hours on this, demonstrating tons of stuff, but there's a few points that you really should be aware of. And that starts with the fact that Copilot, or AI in general, is not a silver bullet. It's not just something you can just switch on and it's just going to solve problems and make everyone's lives amazing. It will work best when it's done within a well-organized architecture, a well-structured architecture. And you've got to be cautious about what it's going to show people. You've got to be cautious about sensitive information. And I want to make a key point here with this, because people often say, well, we're worried about AI exposing our sensitive data to staff. Now, AI and Copilot will only show what I am permitted to see. So if it shows me sensitive information, that data is already exposed. It just means that AI has given me a way that perhaps makes it more easily accessible to me. I've seen intranets do exactly the same thing, where intranets have been deployed with search experiences that suddenly brought up sensitive information for people's OneDrives because they'd shared it with the whole organization without realizing, and things like that. So AI is not to blame for that. It's your architecture, and that's what you need to prepare for and build that strategy to minimize that risk and ensure success, because things like that can really tarnish the name of a product if it goes out on the first stance. So there's certain activities that we do really recommend that you do before engaging with Copilot, starting with a cleansing exercise. Make sure that your house is in order. Get rid of all those redundant or trivial parts and just start it clean. If you don't already, instill policies for site and team creation. Don't allow people to just go out creating them however they want. Guide that process, maybe put approval mechanisms in so that you keep things clean. And obviously have a clean and manageable security model, but also consider retention practices, because what we're doing here, while we may be doing it with Copilot in mind, there's so much more to it than that, because this is just best practice for any organization with Microsoft 365, just helping you grow and prevent problems in future. And with that, consider implementing retention practices with this as well. Do we really need this data to be kept for 20 years? Or do we know that this data should be destroyed after 7 years? So how are we going to do that? How are we going to manage that? And it benefits everyone in every level, including Copilot. With any other product or project that you have, it's always the same. Make sure that you plan for successful adoption. Plan your change management strategy. Create your training and awareness programs. Use champions networks. Make sure your communications are two-way, so it's not just top-down. You are getting this. It's, we're going to do this for this reason. It's going to be great. What do you think? Give us your thoughts. Make it work. Provide them with help, but also think about the approaches that you're going to take for how you measure success. How do we know that Copilot is going to be successful, and how do we measure that? And it links in with our strategic considerations. What is the problem you're trying to solve? Don't just throw it out there and say, this is great, have a go. What are we trying to do? Who are the audiences that we're trying to target with this? And what's the outcome that we expect to see? And how do we measure those against what we deem to be success? And how does that link in with our long-term strategy? And all these things should be considered as we go. So how can IntelliG help? We have a program that we have called the Copilot Navigator, and this has a number of aspects to it. And it's a program where we can work with you and we can run tools that will carry out a very, very thorough analysis of your estate and bring back reports that will show us just the level of the issue that you may have. We're not going to go in and look at the content of documents or anything like that. We don't want to do that. What we're doing is a health check on the estate as a whole, where you've got sites and things that maybe haven't been touched for 10 years and these potentially high risk areas that you might have, be it from content perspective, security perspective, but it's going to give us that visibility that we can then work with you to analyze and come up with solutions and plans and strategies to mitigate risk before it becomes a big problem for you. And we have a number of points within this program. So we can work with you to manage a structured pilot. So identifying an initial team, department, whatever it might be within your organization, to get that first experience out there, working with people to help them adopt and embrace Copilot, gather that real world feedback. And real world feedback is important, but it's even more important when it's real world from your own company or organization. With that, will help you with the change and adoption strategies for them that then link into that strategy going forward for your wider organization. How are we going to get this out there? How are we going to learn lessons and keep it getting better? And how are we going to keep this adoption going and get that return on investment? So this program in a nutshell will provide you with a clear output with potentially a lot of information, but giving you that summary of your estate, what the problems are, what we need to do, what is recommended, and just how we need to approach this. A successfully completed pilot, giving us that community-led feedback, hopefully as well giving us that golden word of mouth that people are then going to do, getting it out to the wider organization. What I often tend to call playground mentality. Somebody having a toy that the other kids now want because they're saying how great it is. But it will give you and everybody else with this as well a greater understanding of the capabilities of Copilot, with a focus on its benefits within your organization, leading to that golden point. Clarity on the place for Copilot within your organization. Why are we doing this? And what is it we're trying to solve? How is Copilot going to do that for us? And so with that, I'll move over to the always exciting topic of licensing.
Yeah, we have to talk money, unfortunately. But thank you, Alex. Really practical advice there. So in terms of the costs of using Copilot, for the full range of functionality that we've shown today, that Microsoft 365 Copilot license would cost £24.70 per user per month. So there's no getting away from the fact that this is a costly add-on to what you're already paying. This is obviously on top of your existing Microsoft 365 licensing. But, looking at the costs in isolation doesn't always tell the story, does it? So I like to consider return on investment more than that. That figure we saw in the earlier slides was using numbers like, over 3 times return on investment against that cost. A word of caution, I think some of these stats that are given, they sometimes base everything on quite high salaries of individuals. They sometimes base things on some really big time savings. So I just thought I'd look at a few different salary ranges and a bit more of a conservative estimate, if you like. So I've looked at 3 different salaries there, starting at 30k, the kind of general average salary in the UK. And I've looked at a return on investment based on saving 2 hours per month, which, hopefully quite conservative. Some of those examples you showed would
saves me more than 2 hours easy.
Absolutely. Even in those sort of Teams meeting, kind of note taking, all those kind of things, you're going to save quite a lot of time. But what you can see there is even at 2 hours saved at 30k salary, there is a good return on investment there. And that obviously grows as you go up the salary range, as it would grow as you make more time savings as well. If you're interested in the workings, always happy to show my workings. I thought it was worth just highlighting a couple of points here. So, that kind of hourly cost for someone earning 50k is basically what you'd pay for Copilot each month. So that break-even point is, an hour for that kind of individual. And as I say, the higher you go up the salary range, the more those return on investment savings are going to be made. And again, kind of looking beyond just the numbers, how will those people use that time that they save? Will they just do other things? Or could that time be used on revenue generation? So, if we think about a lawyer as an example, if we can save a couple of hours a month for a lawyer, that could then turn into fee earning time, and that could then be quite profitable for that organisation.
Well, I think, to be honest, it does with us, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Well, you're fee earning, aren't you?
Yeah.
If we can save you time, then we can turn that into revenue.
Absolutely.
So, and I think going back to Alex's sort of planning and the Navigator program, thinking about your use cases, thinking about the potential return on investment, and just planning out, what can we actually do with this tool and how can it add value to our organisation. I can see we've got a few questions coming in, so I want to answer those. I know we're almost out of time. Just to say that I teased a kind of a follow-on session. So we are planning that for later in the year. We want to delve deeper into creation of Copilot agents and customizing Copilot for your organization. There's also some neat capabilities in SharePoint Premium around assigning metadata based on natural language prompts. So there's lots of good stuff that can be done. But also, if you've got any things that you'd like to see that you haven't perhaps seen today, let us know in the questions, and we'll include those as well. But let's just turn attention to some of the questions that have come in.
I see one person put that we just answered his question, so that's always a good start, isn't it?
I might need to summarize some of these. So toggling between work and web, how does that prevent your organizational data from being mixed with internet data in a response?
So I'm pretty confident when I say that whether I'm using work or web, it doesn't send out my organizational data either way.
Absolutely. Right.
Because there was that famous case with Samsung, wasn't there, where they inadvertently leaked product specs because they were talking to ChatGPT about it. That won't be a problem with Copilot. It doesn't leave your organization. It never does.
Again, that's the difference between Copilot and ChatGPT, isn't it? This is grounded in your organization, in your Microsoft 365 tenant, and nothing leaves that, even if you're using it to search the web.
Yep.
Question about the meeting summaries in Teams. Do you need to have recording enabled in Teams?
Yes, you do. Because it does it using the transcript functionality. So what it's actually doing is it's recording the video, but it's also recording the transcript. And it's that transcript that gets converted into the meeting summaries.
Yeah. Someone suggesting that they're seeing Copilot popping up in Microsoft tools all the time.
Yep.
With the demonstrations we've shown, are they available in the baseline tool without upgrading to the paid version? So ultimately, those Copilots you've shown in Windows apps like Word and Excel, and those would only be available with the paid tool, wouldn't they?
Correct.
Whereas in Edge, you would see the capability to search the web without the paid tool.
Yeah, if you go to, I think you just go to office.com, and now it will throw it in your face pretty much. And you have Copilot chat, so that gives you the baseline version. And then if you want to use it within Word, PowerPoint, etc., it's the paid version that you go to.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, we're pretty much out of time. There are a few more questions coming in, so I'll try and answer those back to the individuals that have asked them in the follow-up to this session. But yeah, we've been pleased to have you with us today. We hope it's been useful. And obviously, we'd love to hear from you if you've got any questions around Copilot, or if there's any help that you need with your Copilot implementation. So all that really remains is to say thank you ever so much for being here. Thank you, Alex, for your input. Fascinating as always. And we look forward to seeing you again on another session in the future. So thanks ever so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Cheers. Bye-bye.